Have you ever felt proud of being a perfectionist until you realized it was ruining your peace? Like, you can't send an email without rewriting it 10 times. You overthink every sentence, double check every reply, and still feel like you didn't do enough. People say you have high standards, but deep down, you know it's something else. It's not about excellence, it's about fear, the fear of being judged, rejected, exposed. Psychology has a name for this, and it has nothing to do with success. Let's break down the real reason perfectionism isn't strength. It's survival, and how to finally feel safe without hiding behind it. You rewrite that email 3 times. You rehearse a simple text before sending it. You spot a typo and feel your stomach twist, like something terrible almost happened. And when someone says, "It's great," don't overthink it. You smile, but you can't help yourself because it doesn't feel right until it's perfect. On the outside, people call it drive, discipline, but inside, it's something much heavier. It's not about being the best, it's about avoiding the worst. Perfectionism wears a nice face, tidy rooms, polished projects, perfect grades. But underneath, there's tension in the jaw, 1,000 silent calculations that most people never see. And here's the truth. You're not chasing excellence. You're outrunning fear. The fear that one slip might confirm the thing you've tried so hard to hide, that you are only lovable when you're perfect. You call it having high standards. Psychology calls it control. And control, for many of us, was the only way we ever felt safe. Perfectionism doesn't grow out of ambition. It grows out of fear, not the kind that makes you scream, but the kind that makes you tighten. You might remember it in small moments. The teacher who frowned, the parent who sighed louder than words ever could. And so, somewhere deep inside, a quiet belief formed. If I can control everything, I won't be hurt. Psychologists call this conditional safety, the belief that your value depends on your performance. For some, mistakes were met with silence. For others, shame. So the mind adapted. Perfect became the currency of survival. Perfectionism isn't about excellence, it's protection. A trauma response dressed up as achievement. Because if everything is flawless, then maybe no one will leave. No one will see the parts of you that still feel unworthy. That's why it never feels like enough. Every success only resets the standard. You don't feel proud, you feel temporarily safe, and the world rewards it. But beneath the applause, something inside you stays tense because perfectionism doesn't soothe fear. It feeds it. It starts early. Maybe you were the quiet one in a loud house, the child who learned to smile before speaking. At first, it looks innocent, a kid who gets straight A's, who organizes their toys. But underneath is a silent contract. If I'm good, I won't be a burden. If I'm perfect, I'll be safe. You start scanning every adult's face like a weather report, looking for storms, learning to detect danger in the pause after your name. And slowly, you build a self out of approval. You become what the room needs, the helper, the achiever, the one who doesn't make a scene. And maybe people praised you. You're so mature for your age. They meant well. But what they didn't see was the child who cleaned their room because chaos was the only thing they could control. The child who got perfect grades not to shine but to survive. You weren't learning to be disciplined. You were learning to disappear behind excellence. When that child grows up, they don't stop straightening things. They just move it into their mind. The to-do lists get longer. The inner critic gets louder. And the tragedy? No one asks why you're trying so hard. Because from the outside, you look like you've got it all together, but inside, you're still that kid trying to earn a peace that should have been unconditional. By the time you're grown, the world rewards what your nervous system created out of survival. But no one sees what it costs you. They don't know that what looks like going the extra mile is you trying to outrun shame. Because perfectionism doesn't rest. Success doesn't feel like safety. It feels like a temporary pause before the next test. You apologize when you're late. You over-explain harmless mistakes. Because good enough still feels like a threat. That's the trap. You don't chase perfection to feel proud. You chase it to avoid feeling ashamed. Perfectionism tells a beautiful lie. It whispers, if you do everything right, nothing will go wrong. And for a while, that illusion works. But here's the truth. Control is exhausting. You spend your days scanning for flaws, replaying conversations, rehearsing moments that haven't happened yet. You don't relax after success. You brace for the next misstep because the fear never leaves. It just wears nicer clothes. Over time, this becomes a prison. You show up to relationships not as yourself, but as the version least likely to be judged. Every compliment becomes pressure. Every mistake becomes proof you never deserved the praise. And maybe that's the tragedy. Perfectionism promises safety, but delivers isolation. Because deep down, you don't trust that you, unfiltered, unedited, unpolished, would be enough. But you are. You've always been. Somewhere along the way, we signed a contract, not with ink, but with survival. As children, we learned that approval was conditional, that love had rules. So we made a silent promise. If I stay small, quiet, helpful, maybe things won't fall apart. Psychology calls this a childhood adaptation, the way the nervous system wires itself when emotional safety isn't guaranteed. And those adaptations work. They keep the peace. But here's the catch. They don't expire when childhood ends. You grow up, but the contract stays. This is why perfectionism isn't about vanity. It's about history. It's a nervous system that never learned what safety felt like unless everything was under control. So when someone says, just let it go, you can't, because you were never taught how. But here's what you can learn now. You don't owe anyone perfection in exchange for love. You never did. That contract, it can be rewritten. There comes a moment, not dramatic, not loud, when something clicks. You realize this thing I called perfectionism was never about excellence. It was about safety. You weren't trying to be the best. You were trying not to be hurt. And that realization shifts everything. You stop blaming yourself. Fire. You start seeing it for what it really is. An old, brilliant strategy that kept you safe when you didn't know what else to do. You weren't weak. You were resourceful. Your perfectionism wasn't ego. It was intelligence, misunderstood and misapplied. That sharp eye you have, that emotional radar, it's not a flaw. It's the same sensitivity that helped you survive. But now, you're allowed to unlearn that. Because your nervous system wasn't trying to make you perfect. It was trying to protect you. And now, you get to protect it back, not with more control, but with compassion. Healing doesn't begin with a breakthrough. It begins with a pause. The moment you stop running, you send an email without rereading it 5 times. And the world doesn't end. It feels strange at first, but then comes relief. Because your nervous system learns that mistakes are survivable. This is called earned safety. When your body starts believing you're allowed to be imperfect. And soon, perfection stops feeling like armor and starts feeling like what it always was, a costume you're allowed to take off. It happens quietly. Not with applause, but with an exhale. You sit at your desk, unfinished tasks lingering, and for the first time, you don't chase them down like a threat. Because something inside you has softened, not in weakness, but in wisdom. You begin to notice the weight you've been carrying. But now you know the truth. Perfectionism never made you better. It just made you afraid to be seen. So you hang up the suit. The one you wore so long, you forgot it wasn't skin. The one that looked like ambition, but felt like fear. You don't need it anymore. You can still care, you can still strive, but from now on, you do it with room to breathe. You don't have to prove your value by being flawless. You just have to be whole. And you already are. You are not broken. You were just scared. But perfection was fear wearing a suit. You can take it off now. Do you ever feel like perfection is the only thing keeping you safe? What part of you still believes that mistakes mean danger, not just error, but rejection? And what would happen if you stopped being perfect and started being present? If this reflection resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and tap the bell icon. Share this with someone who might need permission to rest. Who needs to hear? You don't have to earn love by being flawless. Our other stories should be appearing on your screen now. Watch them next, and I'll see you tomorrow at the same time with a brand new video.